Well, I'm glad you're here, Fern.
I'm glad to be here. Um,
Yeah.
yeah, I feel like saying welcome everybody, but I'm really the one that's new here. So,
Yeah, yeah.
but
Will
it's
you share just a little, your bio is in the newsletter, but maybe just share a little bit about yourself really quick here?
yeah, sure. I'm a rabbi and a nurse practitioner, and a spiritual director and a hypnotherapist. That covers a good chunk of it. I have been exploring the sacred dark for many, many years, and it's I guess one of the things I like doing the most, and I guess some of it has to do with just my own personal experience of the sacred. I think that in Western society, people often have a tendency of feeling like they need to experience the sacred through going up into the light, and my experience is much more about deepening into the dark. And so I I seek the ways in wherever I am. And in Jewish culture, there's just so much material and so many different aspects of the sacred dark to explore. Um, and so we're going to mostly just focus on one aspect of that today, which is the darkness that was there before creation. Probably most of you are familiar with that very early on in the Hebrew Bible in the Torah, it says God says, "Let there be light," but God never says, "Let there be darkness," because the darkness was already there. So that's what we're going to be looking at today.
Nice.
I shared in the chat a link for a document that we'll be doing some text study from. And I'm wondering if people would rather open that on their own and look at it on their own device in their own way, or whether people would like me to screen share. Any
Uh, it's
preferences?
it's not my chat.
Yeah, I
It
don't
should
see it.
be. Really? Oh, shoot. Okay. Wait a minute. There we go.
Oh,
Now you should see it.
yeah, yeah.
Okay.
So would people
Um,
prefer to open it and look at it on, and then you can adjust it the way you want, or would you rather that I screen share?
uh, what I think I just enabled screen share, so people can
Oh,
open that, but hopefully you can share now.
okay, fabulous.
Yeah, that way you'll guide us on where we're at and what we're looking at.
Perfect. There we go. I'm going to just expand that a bit and try to get it so I can still see everybody. Wonderful. So, so as an opening, let's chant the first thing on the page, other than the title. Um, And I know a lot of times when people do Zoom, they have everybody mute when people are singing because otherwise it's sort of cacophony because everybody's at a little bit different time. But I like the cacophony and I love to hear everyone's voices. So it's a pretty monotonous melody. So you'll pick it up after the first time through, if not before. And let's just join our voices together. In the beginning, there was darkness. There was darkness, and the sea and night. In the
In the
beginning, there
There
was
was dark,
darkness.
there
There
was
was darkness, and the sea and night. In the beginning there was darkness, there was darkness, and
darkness,
the
and
sea
sea.
and night.
Nice. Thank you.
Yeah. So most of the texts we're going to be looking at are from Jewish sacred text sources, but we're going to start with a little snippet from Audre Lorde, who was a Black lesbian feminist poet and writer, and she wrote this about 50 years ago. So there's a little gender piece of it that I think maybe now we would see in a more non-dual way. But other than that, I feel like this is such an important thought for our times. She wrote, "These places of possibility within ourselves are dark because they're ancient and hidden. They have survived and grown strong through darkness. Within these deep places, each one of us holds an incredible reserve of creativity and power, of unexamined and unrecorded emotion and feeling. The woman's place of power within each of us is neither white nor surface. It is dark, it is ancient, and it is deep." I think that it's so important for us to be exploring those deep, dark places and drawing strength from them, and particularly centering these images and these experiences because of the ways in which right now everything that gets associated with the darkness, whether it's dark skin, whether it's bodies that have innies, whether it's the earth itself, is all getting devalued and discriminated against by the current regime, which is spreading their thinking throughout the country and throughout the world. And there's a wonderful author, Eulalio Baltazar, who's a Black Christian theologian, and he's written a lot about the sacred dark in Christianity and taking a lot of his sources also from Judaism. And part of what he said is that even though there were some ancient cultures that associated sort of a metaphorical light with good and a metaphorical darkness with bad, that it wasn't until Christian white racism came along that they started associating, piling all the binaries on top of each other and associating sort of spiritual evil with physical darkness. And it's such an important concept for us to undo, for I think many obvious reasons. So that's sort of the other agenda besides just the luscious connection with divine source, that motivates this work. The other thing I just want to say is that one of the authors that I really am inspired by, a current Kabbalist named Rabbi Itchy Morgenstern, says that one of the ways that we can connect with the most transcendent source is through first understanding, like text study on a really focused level, and then dropping into the body, and then shooting into the transcendent. So we're going to do a little bit of that today. We're going to study some sources, and then we're going to do a little visualization practice. So the other thing I want to say is just please chime in at any point if you have questions or comments or just want to add anything.
Thank you.
Yeah. We're going to start at the beginning, Genesis 1. And this, a lot of it doesn't come through in the English because a lot of it doesn't make as much sense in English, but the way the English often gets translated is, "In the beginning, God created the heavens and the earth. And the earth was without form and void, and darkness was upon the face of the deep. And the spirit wind of God hovered over the face of the waters." And that hovering word is like the word that gets used for like a bird, like brooding over the nest. "And God said, let there be light, and there was light. And God saw the light that it was good, and God divided the light from the darkness. And God called the light day, and the darkness called night. And there was evening, and there was morning one day." And like I mentioned before, you might notice that the light got created, but the darkness didn't get created, right? The darkness was already there. So Rashi, one of the greatest Torah commentators, 11th century France, um, comments on this. And the reason he's commenting is that in Hebrew, the word "in the beginning," it's in a grammatical form that can only have another noun after it. But in the Hebrew, actually, the verb comes before the subject. So it's like "in the beginning created." It's like a noun that has to have another noun after it, followed by a verb. So it doesn't make any sense. Yeah, Becky.
Really quick, I don't know if a lot of people know this. You were my roommate, so we've had conversations. I know this, but um, So you're talking what Christians might call the old Bible, so like the first half of what we consider the Bible is actually the Torah, is that right?
So, yeah, let me explain this a little bit. So, first of all, this term, quote unquote, Old Testament doesn't get used by people in who, like, even by Christians in if they're sort of more aware of interfaith issues, because it's what we call supersessionism, where like they think that their new one is better than the old one. So, like typically Christians will, and Jews, when they're communicating with Christians, will call it the Hebrew Bible or the Hebrew Scriptures, because that's just a, sort of a description. And then, the New Testament, who the people who care about that still are going to call it whatever they're going to call it. I don't know another term for that. But the Hebrew Bible actually has three parts: the Torah, the prophets, and the writings. So Torah is the five books of Moses. The prophets is all the prophets, including what I think Christians would call historical books. And then the writings is like Psalms and Proverbs and Job and stuff like that. Um, but Torah also gets used more broadly to mean the whole Hebrew Bible, and also sort of all the oral Torah is the Jewish teachings through which we understand the text. So we're going to see a little bit of stuff from all of those sources. Um, but
And
in Judaism, yeah, go
the
ahead.
last thing that people might not remember is that uh, in Hebrew there's no vowels. I
That's
think you
true.
told
Yeah.
me.
Well, in the
Will you
well
explain
in
that?
the actual Torah text. Yeah, the Torah is written without vowels or punctuation. So, and then also the Hebrew root system has like many layers of meaning in each root. Um, so there's just many more layers of meaning to everything than any English translation can grasp. Um, but in any case, there's also weird grammatical stuff going on, and that the first word of Genesis just makes no sense grammatically. So Rashi comments on this, and one of the ways that he and other people understand it is through allusions to other places where the word appears. So he says, in the beginning, God created, as the sages said, for the sake of Torah, which is called the beginning of his path, Reshit Darko. So this word Reshit, Bereshit, it's the same word in a different place in Proverbs. And so Torah is also associated with wisdom. It's like our source of wisdom and our sort of connection to the guidance of wisdom. Um, so that's where he's coming from. And then Psalms has another use of the same word, Reshit. The beginning of wisdom is Reshit Chochmah. And Psalms 111:10 says the beginning of wisdom is awe of Adonai. Adonai is the Jewish name for God, one of them. It's sort of one of our most central ones. All who practice it gain good understanding. God's praise stands forever. So in a couple of different ways, we have this connection of the idea that the beginning in the beginning of creation, in the beginning of the Torah, is somehow connected with wisdom, is somehow sort of manifested through the power of wisdom. And then the Zohar, which is a compilation of Jewish mystical teachings that were given as oral tradition for probably over 1,000 years and then written down in 13th century Spain, says this is what is meant by in the beginning God created, in the beginning, to wit, in wisdom. When it collected the whole into itself, it became the great sea to water everything. So I don't know if is anyone here familiar with the Kabbalistic tree of life? People might have seen images where there's like 10 circles with different qualities written into them, and they have pathways in between them. So what the Zohar is talking about is that sort of the transcendent source, which is sort of beyond description, sort of flowed through this energy of wisdom and then gathered itself into a great sea, which is called understanding. So wisdom is like the aha moment, like the unitive, like everything is connected. And then understanding is sort of the ability to discern, to differentiate one thing from another. And so that's sort of the great sea that everything then, all the streams flowed out from into manifest reality. So then a couple pages later, the Zohar says, the word Bereshit, that's the word that means in the beginning or in the beginning of with nothing after it, we interpret to mean the second, i.e., Chochmah. Like I was saying, it's the second sphere in that tree. So, i.e., the second Chochmah, wisdom, is the starting point because the supernal Keter, crown, that's the highest, most transcendent, which is really first, is too recondite, that is too secret, too ungraspable, and therefore not counted. Hence, the second is the starting point. Again, the word Bereshit indicates that there are two Reshits. So, the letter, every letter in Hebrew is a number. So the letter Bet is the number two. So the word Bereshit is the number two, and then the word beginning. Be also means in or with. So that's literally what it means. But metaphorically, it's saying there's really two beginnings, an upper wisdom and a lower wisdom. And the lower wisdom is in the manifest world. And in mysticism, in Jewish mysticism, there's like, even though they're at opposite ends of this tree that looks like a hierarchy, there's actually sort of like a wormhole in between them, which means that when we're really, really present in our bodies in the material world, that we have like a direct line from there to the deepest wisdom.
That's beautiful.
Yeah. So now we get to Proverbs, which this is the part that Rashi was referring to when he said Reshit is Reshit Darko, the beginning of his path or his way. Proverbs chapter 8 says, it is wisdom calling, understanding raising her voice. She stands at the top of high places by the way, at the crossroads. She cries at the gates, at the entry of the city, at the entrance of the doors. Adonai created me at the beginning of his way, Reshit Darko, the first of his acts of old. I was set up from everlasting, from the beginning, even before the earth. When there were no depths, I was brought forth. When there were no foundations abounding with water. Before the mountains were settled, before the hills was I brought forth. While as yet he had not made the earth, nor the fields, nor the highest part of the dust of the world. When he established the heavens, I was there. When he drew a circle on the face of the deep. When he established the clouds above, when he strengthened the fountains of the deep, when he gave to the sea his decree that the waters should not pass his commandment, when he appointed the foundations of the earth, then I was by him like a little child. I was daily his delight, rejoicing always before him, rejoicing in his inhabited world, and my delights were with the sons of men. Wisdom has built her house. She has hewn out her 7 pillars. So does this the imagery in here, does this evoke anything that people are already familiar with? Well,
I'm trying
let's
to place the 7 pillars.
oh, so the 7 pillars, this is taken as Kabbalistically that this same kind of concept that the Zohar was talking about, it partially bases on this text that that wisdom was sort of the first thing that came into manifestation to, or maybe not even manifestation, but that sort of came out of the sort of limitless source. And then the house is this sea that everything else comes out of. And then the 7 pillars are the 7 lower spherot of the tree of life, which are sort of the qualities and pathways through which manifest reality came into being. Because a lot of Jewish mysticism is about trying to answer the question of how is it that transcendent, limitless nothingness turned into finite material reality. So it's through these sort of all these pathways, a sort of wave upon wave of emanation becoming more and more manifest on its way. But I love this idea, this image of wisdom as this crone at the crossroads. And I'm going to share one other little commentary on that, and then we'll go back and look at it a little bit more. Victor Avigdor Horovitz is sort of I don't even know if he's still alive, but probably the greatest 20th century commentator on Proverbs. And he says, Chokhmah is depicted as a woman. There are those who say that there isn't anything here except a metaphor to concretize the availability of Chokhmah, wisdom, to anyone who wants to become wise. Others believe that there is here an image of mythological divinity. And what he's talking about, is anybody familiar with the image of Hecate in Greek mythology? It's like the crone at the crossroads, like the if you've ever heard the term like maiden mother crone, for the phases of the moon. Hecate is the crone, the one who carries the souls across the river between the worlds when they die. Um, and is also seen as like the bringing babies into the world and the source of wisdom. Um, and this idea of there being this crone at the crossroads as the symbol of wisdom is really, really ancient. And it's cross-cultural through Mediterranean cultures and ancient Near Eastern cultures. Um, because if we think about it, if you come to a crossroads, you somehow need guidance about which way to go, right? Suddenly you come to a fork in the road, and which way are you supposed to go? So in some ways, it's one of the most sort of primal images for a source of guidance, because it's literally physically you need a source of guidance to know which road to take. Um,
Fern, may I
yeah,
share something?
yeah.
Well, there's two things when you first talked about the darkness, how we associate it. I in my graduate program studied Toni Morrison, and she actually in this
What is the name of the book? I can't read it from.
book is called Playing in the Dark.
Mm,
So she actually looks at, she's much more eloquent than I will be, but she actually looks at how we're brainwashed in literature to see white as good and light and black as bad and dark. I'm a shadow work facilitator, so we love the dark. So, I mean, it's like in our literature.
for
And
sure.
I want to show you this too I don't know if you can see it.
Yeah, yeah. The Triskelion.
It's the maiden, the crone. What's the middle one? The maiden, the
Mother.
mother, and the crone. So it's anyway.
And that symbol is the symbol of Hecate, because in addition to being the threefold goddess, it's also the crossroads, right? You see that image, it's like you could see it as a crossroads, as a path coming and splitting into two, even though they all look equal distant in the symbol. But yeah, that's lovely.
Thank you. You're speaking
Um,
my language. Thank you.
Yeah, I do want to say one thing about the shadow work kind of thing, which is that Jung was very racist and he really perpetuated that idea, even though that sort of thinking, like there's kind of two ways of thinking about darkness, aside from just the, light good, dark bad, which is some people think of darkness as something we need to explore because it's where all the pain and shame and anger and all those things are located. And so we need to explore it to get into our own psyches. And that's true and important. And that is one sort of layer of that. But it totally ignores the other aspect of why we might want to explore the dark, which is the layers that are about darkness as source and essence and mystery and nourishment, and where the physical darkness, where our bodies are able to grow and we're able to dream and where healing happens. um, and I think part of the issue is that um, trying to get beyond that dualist approach to where we can see that there's not one monolithic light and one monolithic darkness, but there's layer upon layer and multivalences. And so some of the layers that we might associate with dark really are scary, like walking around in the dark without a flashlight, and maybe there's going to be a wild animal coming and attacking you and you won't even see it. But then there's also these other layers of darkness that I think we tend not to even be aware of in the sort of dualist thinking. Um, but anyway, I just love this section of Proverbs. And to think of the beginning of creation being that this sort of energy was what was manifesting first as sort of a pathway into the rest of manifestation. Anything else we want to say about this little bit before we go on? So, so Breshit Rabbah, this is what we call midrash, which is like sort of story commentary on the text. So this has Rabbi Oshaya commenced his exposition thus. Then I was by him as a nursling, and I was daily all delight. That's in the passage that we just read. Here it was translated there. Then I was by him like a little child, and I was daily his delight. But the same passage that this is commenting on. And even though this is commenting on the book of Genesis, it's using this passage from Proverbs because it gets associated with the beginning of Genesis. So this word nursling, he's saying amon means tutor, amon means covered, amon means hidden. Some say amon means great. So all these layers of meaning are in this one root. So it gets translated as a nursling because that's sort of the maybe one of the most primary layers of meaning, but it's also all these other things. So wisdom, the wisdom that was sort of present in the creation process is also all these other things. A tutor, something that's hidden, something that's covered. So Amon is a tutor, as you read, as an omen, a nursing father carries the suckling child. So, and this is I added I kept this piece in even though I took out some of the other proof texts that he gave, just because I wanted to also add in the little gender piece, which is that you know, rather than dumping all the binaries on top of each other, when we undo them, we want to undo all those different layers. So it's not just light and dark having multivalences and not being a binary, but gender also we can take apart in the same way. And we have a lot of sources for that actually. Including that, I don't know if you're familiar at all with the book of Esther, but Esther has a sort of adoptive father, uncle character who the tradition says because she was still a baby when she came to him and she needed to be nursed still, that he was milk came to him and he was able to feed her. And there's a lot of images of men having milk and nursing babies in Jewish tradition. So just to add that little extra piece in. So another interpretation, Ammon is a workman. So all these layers of meaning are part of how wisdom was manifesting in creation. The Torah declares, I was the working tool of the Holy One, blessed be he. In human practice, when a mortal king builds a palace, he builds it not with his own skill, but with the skill of an architect. The architect, moreover, does not build it out of his head, but employs plans and diagrams to know how to arrange the chambers and the wicket doors. Thus God consulted the Torah and created the world, while the Torah declares, in the beginning God created. Beginning referring to the Torah, as in the verse, Adonai made me as the beginning of his way. So here again, it's associating wisdom with Torah and saying there's some primordial Torah, some primordial like blueprint for the world through which the world was made. And so whenever we get like a sort of a reality map like that, one of the really wonderful things about having sort of a blueprint for creation is that not only do we get sort of a little bit of a tiny grasp or glimpse of what the creation process might be like on a spiritual level, but it also gives us a reality map for going back in the other direction so that we have a way of sort of walking those paths and reaching back towards the source. And that's a little bit of what we're going to be doing when we take some of these images and go into them. So now Exodus Rabbah, Midrash on the book of Exodus, says 3 things preceded the creation of the world: water, wind, and fire. If we went back to the Torah text we started with, we could see where they were coming from on that. The waters conceived and gave birth to thick darkness. The fire conceived and gave birth to light. The wind conceived and gave birth to wisdom. And with these 6 things, the world is maintained, with wind, wisdom, fire, light, darkness, and water. So I just find this so evocative. We tend to think of, the 4 elements, and in some ways here we have 3, the wind and the fire and the water, but we also have these others, wisdom and fire and darkness, or I guess it's the other ones are wisdom and light and darkness would be the other 3. So I just love this way of imagining. And this thick darkness comes up over and over again. It's what the Torah was given out of. It's what the Torah says, that Moses went into the thick darkness where the divine presence was in order to receive Torah. So we can imagine this thick darkness as being sort of a place we can enter to have an easier time connecting with the source. And I think part of it has to do with that when we're in the light and we're using our visual sense, it's easy to imagine that everything is all separate because the light is bouncing off of objects and giving the appearance that there's all these unconnected, separate objects. And when we close our eyes or we're in the dark, we can really sense how that is an illusion and that everything is all connected and part of one interconnected whole living entity that is everything that is. And Rabbi Bachya ibn Pakuda, he was, I think he was in the 1000s. He says, counsel in a person's heart is deep water, but one of understanding can draw it out. Mishle that's Proverbs. So he starts with this quote from Proverbs and then says, the meaning is that wisdom is implanted in human nature, in one's character and in one's powers of perception, like the waters that are hidden in the depths of the earth. The intelligent and discerning person will try to tap into his own inner potential for wisdom, uncover it, and bring it to expression, drawing it out of his own heart, much like the search for water in the depths of the earth. So we might think of the sort of the source or this idea of sort of dark wisdom as being something that is surrounding us, like the interconnectedness of being that we imagine in the dark. And that's true. But there's, in addition to there being a level of the divine that's surrounding us, there's also the part that's deep within us and flowing through us. So we can draw that deep water out of ourselves too. And then the Zohar has this passage that I really love, that starts again with "Let there be light" from Genesis. Let there be light, and there was light. Every subject of the phrase "and there was," which is all one word in Hebrew, exists in this world and the world that is coming. The world that is coming is this idea of like a messianic time when sort of divinity is manifest through all of reality and we're all liberated. But it's also the way the Hebrew grammar works, the world that is coming, it's both sort of a future, but it's also something that's already present that we can already tap into in reality that we're living in. Rabbi Yitzchak said, the light created by the Blessed Holy One in the act of creation flared from one end of the universe to the other and was hidden away. So why might we think it was hidden away? I don't know how familiar you are with the story of creation, but different things got created on different days. And in that passage, the first day, God says, let there be light, but the sun and the moon and the stars don't get created till day 4. So the mystics looked at that and said, well, okay, the light on day 1 couldn't have been the light of the sun and the moon and the stars because they weren't around till day 4. So what is this light that was there on day 1? It's some other light that we don't know about anymore. So it's this light of creation. And so then it must have been hidden away because we don't see it. If we don't see the sun or the moon or the stars, we don't see any light anymore. So why was it hidden away? So the wicked of the world would not enjoy it, nor the worlds enjoy it because of them. It is preserved for the righteous. for the righteous precisely, as is written, light is sown for the righteous, joy for the upright in heart. That's a quote from Psalms. Then the worlds will be fragrant and all will be one. This idea in Zohar is that in the world that is coming, there will be this like fragrance of beauty and life and holiness. That's kind of the image of what that world will be for us. But until the day when the world that is coming arrives, it is preserved, treasured away. When I read this passage and I tried to imagine, sort of what is it talking about, the thing that came to me was nuclear weapons. That it totally makes sense to me that there is a light that is so powerful that we do not want to make it available to the wicked of the world. Um, so I imagine it being something like that, in the wrong hands could be totally destructive, but in the right hands could be, sort of huge and powerful. And anyway, so what it says about that is that light radiated from the midst of darkness, hewn by truncheons of the concealed of all, until a single secret path was carved by the hidden light, leading to darkness below where light dwells. Who is darkness below? The one called night, of whom is written, and the darkness he called night. So we have learned, revealing depths out of the darkness. So what is this saying? It's a little bit hard to picture, but it's saying that the light of creation, this light that radiated from the midst of darkness, so the light of creation came out of the darkness. What was the darkness that came out of? It was a darkness that was sort of carved out by God, who is also hidden away, concealed of all. And so there's the darkness of the divine source. There's the darkness that God carves out to make a space for creation. There's a light that comes out of that. And then that led to what it's calling the darkness below, within which there's light. So there's layer upon layer upon layer of dark and light. There's a primordial darkness. There's a physical lightness that comes out of that. There's night, there's day. So it's very clear that there's not just one kind of light and one kind of darkness, but multiple waves and layers and aspects. And then another seeker in this the Zohar has like a whole group of seekers that are practicing and talking to each other. So another one, Rabbi Yossi says, if you say they are revealed from the sealed darkness, we can see they are concealed, all those supernal crowns, and we call them depths. Why then revealing? Because all those supernal concealments are revealed only from the darkness abiding in the mystery of night. So they're suggesting if we want to sort of explore the depths, the dark depths that creation comes from, that wisdom comes through, the best time to do it is at night. Come and see, all those concealed depths emerging from thought, conveyed by the voice, are not revealed until the world reveals them. Who is the word? Sorry, until the word reveals them. Who is the word? Speech. This speech is called Sabbath. And because Sabbath is called speech, mundane speech is forbidden on Sabbath, for this speech must prevail, no other. This speech deriving from the side of darkness reveals depths. So the idea is that for things to come into manifestation, first there's thought, and then thought comes into the voice, and then the voice sort of separates the thoughts into speech that come out into actual manifestation. So speech is the manifestation of thought and of whatever is beyond that. And that's associated with the material world. And if you look at the 7 days of creation, the seventh day, God rested, and that's Shabbat or Sabbath. So that's also associated with the material world. So the Sabbath is meant to be the time that we experience the sacred that as manifest in the material world, and has physical pleasure. So that's how we draw forth this darkness from the depths is into sort of seeing the sacred in the material world. How are we doing? We have a couple more minutes. Okay, we're going to read this a little bit quickly. So Rabbi Yitzchak, another one of his seekers, says, if so, what is the meaning of the verse, God separated the light from the darkness? He replied, light generated day, darkness generated night. Afterward, he joined them together and they became one, as is written, there was evening and there was morning, day one. For the night and day are called one. So I don't know if this comes through in all the translations, but the first day of creation, it doesn't say first day, it says one day one, and the rest of them it all says second, third, like the ordinal numbers. So they're noticing that the first day it's all interconnected into one. As to what is written, God separated the lights from the darkness. This pertains to the time of exile when division prevails. Rabbi Yitzchak said, until now the male was in light, now the female is in darkness, reflecting its light. Later they joined together, becoming one. How are they differentiated, distinguishing light from dark? Rungs differentiate, yet both are as one, for there is no light without darkness, nor darkness without light. Though one, they diverge in color. Even so, they are one, as is written, day one. So I love this idea of thinking of whether it's gender or dark and light as different colors, right? There's like a multitude of colors, and they are all part of this of the one whole. And Rabbi Shimon said, through a covenant, the world was created and established, as is written, were it not for my covenant with day and night, I would not have established the laws of heaven and earth, from Jeremiah. Who is covenant? Tzaddik, righteous one. So the world endures by covenant, day and night together. As is written, were it not for my covenant with day and night, I would have not have established the laws of heaven and earth, the allowance of heaven and earth flowing forth from Eden. So it's this interconnectedness. We can't separate them out and push one away and say, we're only going to keep the light and we're going to like exile the darkness. It doesn't work like that. So this last bit, we're going to sing a little bit later on, but Psalm 42, deep calls to deep, in the roar of your waterfalls. All your breakers and billows have swept over me. By day may Adonai appoint her loving kindness, and at night her song is with me, a prayer to the God of my life. This idea of sort of the experiencing the depths, like almost like we're in the depths of the water. And that it's telling us that the loving kindness that we experience during the day is drawn forth from our nighttime study, our nighttime prayer, our nighttime song. So now we're going to dive into a little practice. But let me first see if anybody has any comments or questions. All right, so I think I'm gonna stop screen sharing. But I'm just gonna share with us before we do that. So this deep calls to deep part is in Hebrew Tehom El Tehom Koreh. And there's a song that we're gonna sing a little bit later when we're coming back from our visualization that has these words, and then from the deep I call to you, which is sort of a figurative comment on the what the actual text says. So so we might want to close eyes for this if you feel comfortable doing that. If you're sitting, you might want to uncross your limbs. Put your feet flat on the floor if you can, or just get into a position where you're comfortable. Just notice if your body is in a position where the energy can easily flow through your limbs. And take a few breaths and just drop into the body and into the present moment. And notice as we breathe that the particles we breathe have been around since creation. Since creation and creatures first drew breath. So our breath connects us back to that time. The time when time was just starting. So on each of the next 3 breaths in and out, we'll deepen, drop down a level on each breath. Let our awareness reach back to earliest human consciousness. So now take 3 breaths and sink deeper. And here in this river of time, we flow back to when we were standing in the Garden of Eden, amazed at the loveliness of our own flesh, the freshness of the air, the vividness of the colors around us, the animals, the grasses and trees, the water. We look around ourselves, and as we go deeper, we find that time continues to take us back, and our own bodies loosen at the edges, soften, fade, and give way until we look out with the eyes of consciousness itself and see only that which is around us. And as we watch the animals lie down and sink into the ground, fade from view, and the birds quiet and disappear till we see no more of them, and the fish sink down in the waters, the luminaries begin to fade, so we no longer see with the light of the sun and moon and stars, but with the light of creation itself. And in that light, we can see the trees and grasses swiveling and sinking back into the earth till the land is bare. And as we watch, the dry land is covered over with water until all we see is sea and sky with rain clouds above. And as we continue to watch the clouds sink down and merge with the sea, until all there is sea and sky, as far as we can look in all directions. And as we stretch our vision to look out as far as we can notice the light beginning to fade. Our vision fades. It all turns gray and finally black until there's nothing to see. Vision is gone. We're simply floating in the sea, embraced by the dark water. And the edges of our sensations give way. Whatever is left of our pores open, and we merge with the dark water, sink deeper, opening out in all directions, rocking on the waves from the wind that hovers over us. And we sink further down, deepening and deepening. And there we hear a voice calling, the voice of wisdom, calling to us from the depths of the sea. And we quiet and we listen. And know that you can come back to this place anytime you want to. This is always inside and all around if we look for it. And take guidance and blessing that we receive here. So take a moment to find a feeling or a word or a sound or an image to carry what you have heard or felt here. And feel the power of that flow of blessing arising from here, carrying it with you, empowering you to carry the flow of blessing into the world with you. And feel yourself rising on that flow to the surface of the water. And as you do, clouds rise off the surface of the water and return to their home in the sky. And the waters start to get shallower and recede around you until you're on dry ground again. And the ground sprouts vegetation, grasses and flowers and trees. And as you watch, the light concentrates into the luminaries, the sun and the moon and the stars. And you see something flash off in the water and know the fish are back. And when you look up, the birds are flying through the sky again, cawing and peeping. And the ground starts to teem with creatures, bugs and creeping things and four-legged beasts. And eventually you notice your own body again, your flesh, your edges, your breath. And as you breathe, you travel on breath through time and space, on the particles of air that have existed since creation. Those particles that are moving through your lungs right now, in this moment, in this very place, in your own body, on your own breath. Reach out your hands and touch your body and feel the texture of your clothes, your skin, its temperature, your muscles, where you feel your feet or back or bottom touch the floor or chair with solid earth beneath. Feel your own heartbeat. And from this place of awareness of the deep flow that emanates from the darkness before creation, the flow that we're all part of, we prepare to move back out into our lives, drawing that flow of blessing with us. Om Eldom Gore, Om Eldom Gore, Om Eldom Gore. From the deep I call to you, from the deep I call to you, from the deep I call to you.
This is beautiful, Fern.
Thank you. Let's take our last couple minutes to just share anything we want to share from our experience or anything from our hour together.
Well, I found that I took when we were doing the visualization, I found I was taking great comfort from the darkness and excited with the light, and not with the formation of light. And not that light was any better than the darkness, but just a new manifestation. And it was the combination, as we read in the early text, it was the combination of light and darkness that made the total day.
Hmm.
And
Yeah.
I was surprised with the amount of comfort I drew from the darkness. It wasn't it wasn't a fear of the unknown. It was a comfort that was awarded.
Beautiful. That's wonderful. That I'm glad because that's I experienced that and I love to be able to share it. Thank you. Anybody else got anything they want to share?
I'm curious what one word people got towards the end there. Like
Nice.
I felt like
Comfort.
peace was like the
Yeah,
word.
Nice.
I got comfort.
Lovely. Yeah, anybody else want to share a word? I love that way of doing things.
I'll just say one of the things we talk about as shadow work facilitators is the gold within the darkness.
Mm,
And and in the darkness there's great mystery. So the word was mystery
mm,
for me that came up.
lovely. Yeah,
Nice.
so I just want to end with may the merit of our learning and our exploring together today be for all those who are suffering because of the negative views of the darkness in this world. And may we all be empowered to do our part to bring wisdom into this world.
Thank you, Fern. I
Yeah,
really appreciate you coming today and sharing with all of us. Um, yeah, it's beautiful.
thanks.
Thank you.
Thanks for having me. It was really lovely joining you all.
Yeah, cool.
Yeah.
All right. Any last? Hey, Ariana.
Nice to see a face.
Yeah.
Wonderful.
Any other
Thanks,
last
everybody.
thoughts or any questions or anything like that?
I'd like to thank you, Fern. That was very nice of you to share your life with us and your teachings.
Thank you.
Yeah, it's very nice. Thank you.
Sure. And if anybody feels like reaching out with anything they want to share later on, if you have the link for the handout, it's got my website, which has a contact thing if you feel like getting in touch.
And that's also in the email for today's service.
Thanks. Thanks, everybody.
Thank you, Fern.
Thank you, Fern.
Bye.
Bye, Fern. Have a good day.
You too.
Thanks.
Bye-bye.
Thank you. All right, you guys. Thanks, Charlie, for joining in. Laura, I hope your back feels better. Thanks, Kevin.